11-3 bracket. It is Todd Stevens versus Collins Mullen. A perfect record so far in Modern for Todd. You see him on the left, looking good as always. Dresses up for his Magic events. Collins on the play, but Todd's going to steal that from him with the Gemstone Caverns. It's a 1-of in his deck.
Gemstone Caverns, when you're on the draw, enables you to exile a card from your hand to put a luck counter on it. As long as it has a luck counter on it, it can tap for mana any color. It's a free, quote-unquote, free land drop.
Instant Neonate from Mullins. Now, Ryan, he exiled Emrakul to Gemstone Caverns. It's the only Emrakul in his deck. Does that matter here?
So that's what he finds when he wants to close the game with Nahiri the Harbinger, but he has multiple other avenues to close the game here. He has a Johnny Vengeance, which can deal damage. Chandra Torch of Defiance is actually a very good way to close games. Gideon Jura as well. He can't ever actually cast the Emrakul.
So this is pretty neat. Todd, thanks to that Gemstone Caverns, played a turn 1 Chalice of the Void on the draw off his extra land. You said that this might be his most important card game 1 outside of Anger. We'll see how much damage it does.
Yeah, Collins got this Insolent Neonate in under it, but he won't be able to cast Faithless Looting anymore for the rest of the game, and he's already drawn at least 1 copy.
Yeah, he attacks with Neonate, then sacrifices it, discards Amalgam to draw a card, and this is going to hurt Collins. So his draw for the turn was a copy of Faithless Looting. His draw off that Neonate was another Neonate. None of these play.
If I'm going to watch any deck get chaliced, kind of happy it's Dredge, so it does still have some game to it.
So Cathartic Reunion, the play from Collins Mullen. He does not have any Dredgers to discard. He's playing this card pretty fairly. Discards the Neonate and the Looting, the 2 cards he can't cast.
Yep, so he needs to find a way to get this Amalgam back on the battlefield. Currently he's up to nothing. Todd, in a turn or 2, will start casting Planeswalkers and force more action.
Temple, or Sacred Foundry to play tapped from Todd, and he passes. Now, Ryan, if Collins plays a 3rd land and tries to flash back Faithless Looting, does he get around Chalice of the Void?
Still a 1-mana spell, still casting it.
Even though I paid 3?
Gonna go with a Negatory on that one.
All right, so that card not doing anything. Maybe Collins not doing anything. The game 1 here, this is supposed to be the game that Collins wins.
Yes.
If Todd gets it, that's a huge coup.
And Collins' hand with that Faithless Looting plus the Neonate, he had a lot of stuff to redraw to try to find the Dredger, but without being able to dredge at this point in the game, he's just not doing what his deck is supposed to do.
And even if he draws a Dredger, how's he going to get it into the graveyard at this point? I guess it looks like he has another Cathartic Reunion in hand. That could do something. He plays a land and says go. I suppose he could hard cast some Grave Trolls.
Yeah, it's a thing that the deck can do.
What, 5 mana for Golgari Grave Troll?
Todd has some access to Journey to Nowhere in his deck. There's 2
It
copies there.
Two,
he has some avenues to deal with that.
I was going to say, Todd can't path it. I was like, no.
That's why he's not playing Path.
This deck is great. Now, a Simian Spirit Guide. And 4 lands from Todd Stevens. Here comes the finisher. It is Gideon Jura, the most loyal of Planeswalkers. Plus is up to 8 loyalty. Had that taunt ability. All of Collins' creatures have to attack, and they all have to attack Gideon.
Of course, Collins is going to need to get some creatures before he has to worry about that.
But this card is just a house against Dredge. What do they do about it?
Well, when Dredge is really executing its game plan, it's trying to have at least 8 power on the battlefield anyway. With Prized Amalgams, Blood Maglist, yeah. Gideon only destroys creatures with the -2, doesn't even exile like Nahiri. So Dredge, when it's executing, has a lot of game against Gideon. So I guess
it's not the lights out that you'd expect from, say, like against Infect. They can almost never beat this card.
Infect has to expend a lot of resources against Gideon, yeah.
So Dredge would have a chance, but Collins has got to get something going. No Dredgers in the yard. You see he naturally draws again. Continues to use fetch lands to develop his mana.
Yeah, he has that Cathartic Reunion, but he really wants to draw a Dredger before he's able to do anything with that.
He has a Simian Spirit Guide, it looks like, that he has drawn. He's playing 4 of them in his build this weekend.
Currently, Grave Troll would be a 3/3 if you were to hardcast that.
There's, Prized Amalgam. Okay, 3/3, boom.
All right. We're on the board.
I mean, to be fair, when Todd Stevens' deck, because it plays so many lock pieces, its closing speed, is actually pretty poor.
Yes.
So, you know, Todd has controlled the board. Now when you're like, all right, Todd, so win the game. And he's like, well, it might take him a while.
Right. Collins definitely has some time. And also Todd, again, has exiled his one Emrakul, so he doesn't have access to kind of the faster Nahiri kill.
You see Todd's hand. It is a land, a Anger of the Gods, and a Lightning Helix.
Yeah, outside of Temple of Triumph, the deck really isn't filtering its draws at all either. So he's just relying on top decking more Planeswalkers.
Oh, I like what he's going to do here. Lightning Helix is down the Prized Amalgam, zeroes the Gideon and attacks. Boom, 6 damage, go. Can you race this? This is the most, like the most embarrassing of win cons almost. But hey, I mean, if you can't do anything about it, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, winning is winning, as Vin Diesel would say.
Is that a Vin Diesel thing?
Fast and Furious Part 1.
All right.
A gem.
I think Todd Stevens would really like the Vin Diesel comparison.
Yeah, Todd and Vin Diesel have a lot in common. They're both famous actors, bodybuilders.
So Collins Mullen, I almost feel like his best draw here would be something like Stinkweed Imp, or
if he could draw a Grave Troll and cast Cathartic Reunion, discarding it, then he can start getting something going.
He can do something like play a Spirit Guide as a blocker. There's a bunch of really medium things Collins can do, but to be fair, Todd doesn't have much on his own either. Maybe they work.
Dredging over some Narc Amoebas to get in front of the Gideon stops that from being a relevant concern. And also a trigger from a Narc Amoeba would allow him to recur his Prized Amalgam, start pressuring the Planeswalker and Todd as well.
Cathartic Reunion from Collins. Going to discard a Spirit Guide into land, so he's hanging on to 1 card there. He'll draw 3. Let's see what he gets. Right, Stinkweed Imp, that still seems great if he can hit it. Just anything, any dredger.
Yeah, one thing about Gideon 5 is it does not become indestructible when it's a creature, though you need a kill spell.
Okay.
You need a kill spell to kill it because it prevents all damage, so I do believe.
Okay, so Stinkweed Imp wouldn't kill the Gideon.
Right.
Stinkweed Imp has that old school Death Touch. This is back before Death Touch was a thing. It's that it's when it deals damage, destroy the creature.
Right.
It's basically Death Touch.
Pretty much.
Todd draws another land. And I know I said before, the closing speed of Red-White Prison is, well, we're seeing it in action. A swing for Gideon puts Collins down to 4.
Attacking with a 6/6. It's a veritable Primeval Titan.
Yeah, I like this card. This card's about on par with Primeval Titan. Collins fetches down to 3. That's actually a very dangerous number he's gone to.
Yeah,
gives Todd a lot more outs.
Exactly. He's got some more Lightning Helix hanging out in the deck. A full 4 copies. He's only cast 1 so far.
Does his deck actually play no 1-mana cards? There's no. He's a red-white deck with 0 Path, 0 Bolt.
You don't need 1-mana cards when you have Gemstone Caverns.
This deck's a gem. I mean, Todd's showing us, right? Look, 6-0. Looks like he might get this game.
This deck is,
what do I know,
wildly unplayable without Simian Spirit Guide and Gemstone Caverns, but it sure can lock decks out of the game with access to these tools.
Big draw by Collins Mullen actually is a copy of Golgari Grave Troll, and here is the 5-mana creature. It comes into play the 1/1 counter for each creature in Collins' graveyard. So you see Simian Spirit Guide, Prized Amalgam, Insolent Neonate, Prized Amalgam. It's actually big enough, and this is very important, because Todd has an Anger of the Gods in hand. Yeah, it's a 5/5.
Of course, the Gideon is a lethal attacker here. If Collins is able to produce another mana source, Golgari Grave Troll does have a regeneration ability by paying 1 mana and removing a +1/+1 counter.
Big draw, Wrath of God by Todd Stevens, and you can't even regenerate it. That's what it says on the card. Gideon swings game 1 to Todd Stevens.
Yep, no outs to that one. Todd, I guess he cast a couple more spells, but Chalice Gideon was really all he needed to close that game.
And what a win for Todd Stevens. You said how game 1, he doesn't actually have the lock pieces. And look at this. Okay, no rest in pieces in the main. He did draw an Anger, never cast it.
Yep.
And Todd wins game 1 against Dredge. It's just, things had to line up. How often does Chalice for 1 even beat Dredge?
Right, it's not terribly effective, and a big part of the issue was Collins did not have a Dredger that he was able to go to in his opener immediately. He was kind of banking on being able to Faithless Looting into that. He led on Insolent Neonate and just didn't find any Dredgers in time.
Well, Dredge does have a bit of a fail rate. So if you look at Collins' hand that he kept, it was a Neonate and 2 Cathartic Reunions with Prized Amalgam. It's not bad, but I guess even against any opponent, if that Neonate and the 2 Reunions don't find a Dredger, you're going to lose to everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, that hand is relying on a couple things going right.
All right, so we're going to look at the sideboards. We're going to first start with Todd Stevens. He is the prison deck. Okay, means he has some very big cheeser cards for different matchups. Okay, Stony Silence, that's for Affinity. That's not here. Rest in Peace, yes. Leyline of Sanctity, Blessed Alliance, Anger of the Gods, Wrath of God, Elspeth Sun's Champion, Celestial Purge. Okay, what are we at?
Anger of the Gods is great.
Yeah.
That deals with anything, even if Dredge is getting off the ground. I'm kind of on board with Elspeth Sun's Champion. Just the ability to make 3 blockers every turn is pretty good. It's not the most exciting card. It's fine. Celestial Purge to exile against a slower start. This card's totally reasonable. But mostly we're just looking at those Rest in Peace and the Anger of the Gods. Those are huge hits here. Possibly some other minor changes happening to the deck.
On Mullen's side, he's got a Conflagrate, a Bojuka Bog, 2 Dark Blast, 3 Nature's Claims, Abrupt Decay, Vengeful Pharaoh, Knot of the Bone, Thoughtseize, Ancient Grudge, Lightning Axe. I want to say what he just has to... Todd's deck is a bunch of blanks and then some really big knockout punches. I think he's got to fight against those.
He wants some combination of artifact and enchantment destruction, and Todd is going to play artifacts and enchantments that he cares about. There's going to be these games where he has to care about Chalice of the Void. He's always going to care about Rest in Peace, so he kind of wants Nature's Claim. Chalice plus Rest in Peace turns that off, so Abrupt Decay is really the more relevant piece here. But you just bring that all in, probably the Ancient Grudge as well. And then the 2 Thoughtseize certainly on the play to try to stop Todd from having a turn 1, turn 2 Rest in Peace. Just get out in front of that.
It's going to be interesting, this fight here. Colin's going to have to win 2 games, both the post-pro games against Todd Stevens. It's going to be tough. So it's game night somewhere. That's, of course, true over Star City Games. Now that we have switched over to the month of December, that happened on Thursday, the game nights, this is prizes, pins, and tokens given away at your local stores just for playing in weekly events. It's now switched over to the 6/6 whale token of Fintuition. That is, of course, a pun on the card from Tempest Block. You can win these by finding any store near you and just playing the Magic you'd normally play. So next month, we're going to be giving away the Squeaky Cheeky Acorn Breaker. This is your legendary Squirrel Goblin.
Chipmunk.
And we have the Corgi Firewalker. That's the newest one. It's going to be available in February. And if you can get your store signed up this month, we will get you signed up in time to receive this excellent pup. He'll be good again in all your red matchups for sure. Sign over at starcgames.com/game night. Now for Todd Stevens, White Red Prison going for his 7th straight win here in Modern. The 30-year-old from Denton, Texas has notched 5 open top 8s. It was just about a year ago that he very publicly declared that he was going to make it to the Players' Championship. Started streaming frequently, going to all these tournaments, and this weekend it looks like Todd is going to make good on his promise.
Executing with the deck that he constructed, this Red-White Prison deck.
One of the innovators of Bant Eldrazi first in Modern. This is a format... You know, Todd Stevens is really one of the more premier deck builders, I think, that we'll see in 2 weeks in Roanoke.
And some of those Modern top 8s coming off of playing Naya Company, another deck that he worked on.
It is quite the pedigree to take a format like Modern and innovate such different of decks. Something like Naya Company, that's more or less it's mid-range reactive deck, come up with a Prison deck, and Bant Company and the Bant Eldrazi deck at the same time. This is a lot of great work on Todd's side.
And 4-color Planeswalkers, lest we forget. The doubling season deck.
Yeah, there's that. Hey, you got to take your shots. Okay. Did have results with it, to be fair. Collins on a mulligan here. So at 11-3, both these players certainly need a win this round if they want a top 8. Todd Stevens was in 10th place going into the round. It is likely that he will have to win twice.
So odds are getting better all the time here. Collins 6, it contained at least 2 copies of Narcomoeba. That's not what you're looking for.
That's not what you do with that card. You don't want it in your opener.
Dredge is kind of full of stuff that you don't really want in your opening hand.
So Collins is going to go to 5 now. Dredge is one of the best mulliganing decks, though.
Yes.
Right, 2 lands, a Faithless Looting, and a Cathartic Reunion, and a Dredger is not just a keepable 5-card hand. It's a very good 5-card hand. It will likely win.
You lose some value down the line on things like your Conflagrates, but just getting your engine going. That's what the deck cares about most of all.
Collins contemplating his 5. Can this win? A lot of times with Dredge, there are some speculative keeps. It's really neat, though, because the deck dredges more often than it draws. Your hands are almost set in stone, where a lot of times you keep Magic hand, there's this randomness, right? Okay, well, I'll draw a card each turn. Maybe I'll hit this. Maybe I'll hit that. With a good dredge hand, it's not a maybe. It's, you know, I'm only going to take 2, maybe 1 natural draw off my deck. What I have is what I have. Is it good enough?
And because of that, it's hard to keep a dredge hand with fewer than 3 lands, because a lot of your hands will need to flash back Faithless Looting to be competitive.
Once you start dredging, you're not drawing a land anymore.
Right. The exception being Dakmor Salvage, but that's a really slow way to both dredge and get to Faithless Looting.
Yeah, also, yeah, so there are 2 copies in Mullen's deck of the Future Sight land. Yeah, and Collins can't keep his 5. He'll go to 4. His deck is still capable of winning on 4. It's one of the few decks in Modern that really has a shot.
Yes.
No,
2 lands, double Faithless Looting might be excellent from here.
I play a lot of Valakut. There's kind of a rule with Valakut that you keep almost any 6 and you actually keep any 5. Like, you just can't, like, you can't win on 4 cards. You can't get to your 6 drop. There's no combination of spells that does it.
When Thoughtseize was legal in Standard, I played a lot of the red decks because I'm a big dummy. But
yeah, and you just can't.
When I knew that the pairing was mono black, I would keep almost any 7-card hand.
And they're gonna if I go to 6, they're gonna Thoughtseize me, and then I'm gonna lose.
Right.
All right. Well, Collins keeps on 4. Turn 1, Mountain. Go for Todd Stevens. It is a white. It's a Temple of Triumph, and Triumph may be exactly what he has here. He'll scry to the bottom. Stomping Ground. The draw for Collins. He will take 2. Okay. Something like Cathartic Reunion, and this is why the deck's so great. Cathartic Reunion, discarding Grave Troll and Stinkweed Imp. Yeah, 4 cards, no problem. Here we go. Now, keep in mind, Todd Stevens, with a turn 2 Rest in Peace, could just shut all this off.
Well, let's see how much power Collins is able to put on the battlefield here.
First dredge is Grave Troll. Oh, this is good.
Yeah, 1 Amalgam there. He wants to find a Narcomoeba on this sequence at least.
2nd Amalgam. Okay. He needs a Narcomoeba. If he doesn't have one, I think Todd has a Rest in Peace.
It's just loam for the 3rd dredger. 3 cards for a Narcomoeba.
Yeah, do it.
And even then he has to fade Anger of the
There
Gods.
we go. Narcomoeba's the top card, and 2 Bloodghasts. So Collins hits on the last dredge. It triggers 2 prized amalgams. He gets 7 power into play. Even if Todd has the Rest in Peace, Collins has a shot.
Yes. Todd needs Rest in Peace plus
All right.
Anger of the Gods.
And Todd's will do it. Here's Rest in Peace. Boom. Graveyard gone. Now the question is are this 7 power with the creatures, is this going to be good enough? Collins' hand of Loam, Imp, I mean, Collins' hand's terrible. He's just playing the board at this point.
Right. He can't even cast Life from the Loam just to dredge it. It just gets exiled.
He could fetch Shock and cast Stinkweed Imp.
So the question is, can I attack you on 3 consecutive turns for 7?
Well, here's 7. Todd Stevens down to 12. What is Mullen Collins' play? He'll cast Life from the Loam into a Rest in Peace that is going to be exiled. And he'll say go.
Yeah, so that one's not going to do anything here.
Now, all Todd needs is the cleanup crew. I mean, in this matchup, Todd is going to keep just about, I think, any hand with land, Rest in Peace.
And it kind of looks like he did just keep any hand. I'm seeing double Blood Moon Simian Spirit Guide.
Well, so here's a Blood Moon from Todd Stevens, but this doesn't matter. Collins can't play any of his cards anyway.
Right. Draws
a land, sure. I mean, he's, okay, Collins is going to swing for 7 again. Todd's to 4.
All right. Got to be Anger. Wrath of God would do it too here.
Yeah, Todd very cleverly fetched for a 2nd basic Plains before casting the Blood Moon so that out's there. Any sweeper in Todd seems like he'd be the favorite.
Lightning Helix would be a redraw. It would get him out of the turn cycle.
Yeah, he'd go to 3 and kill an Amalgam. That'd be great. Mm-hmm. Another land from Collins, another mountain, a draw from Todd Stevens. Is he alive? He is not, and on 4 cards, Collins Mullen evens this up.
There's those games where Blood Moon is oppressively powerful, and there's those games where Blood Moon is a functional mulligan.
And you can just see it. Have you ever had the biggest match you've ever played, and you mulligan to 4, and you could just see it on his face. You're like, you know your tournament's over, and then suddenly it's not. You just, oh man.
Yeah. And
man.
If you're Todd, you can't mulligan that hand. He had the rest in peace on turn 2. That's what he really wants. He just kind of has to bank on Dredge not executing, and every time Cullen's mulligan, his odds that Dredge would not execute went up. He had to find that Narcomoeba on his third Dredger, just a life from the Loam. It showed up.
Oh, yeah.
Todd just had nothing.
I remember that the Loam wasn't even in his yard when he started that.
Right.
He had to dredge into it.
Yep.
But, right, his keep was, what, land, Cathartic Reunion, 2 Dredgers.
That hand's great.
I mean, that was 5 cards. He had to draw one of them. I don't know which one he drew. I don't think it matters. He's keeping it regardless.
Yeah.
Wow. Collins Mullen with a win. So the winner of this is going to be perhaps locked for in the top 8, may have to win one more. Now, there's so much on the line this weekend. For Todd Stevens, he's already got 1 win. The Players' Championship is in his hands at this point. And big congratulations there. But he'd like so much more.
Oh, yeah. He would love to come into the Players' Championship as the most recent Invitational champion.
Now, another thing on the line is the token made in your likeness. The player gets to pick a token, the Invitational winner, and then it's given away at Star City Games. So Liam Lonergan was our Season 2 champion with Elves in Modern. Had a perfect tournament with it. Now, time is running out if you want to get a hold of this token. It was given away all of Season 3 here at Opens and Classics. Now, those are done, so it'd be kind of hard to get one. If you're in the Atlanta area, you could come out tomorrow, play one of our Classics, and get these tokens. But outside of that, there's still a way to get them. In this next week, you're going to want to put an order in at StarCityGames.com. Any order of $5 ships with one of these great tokens.
Get your Dwinn's Elite, buddy. Or your Elvish Promenade.
So I want to ask you a question, though, about Todd Stevens' hand. Do you keep anything that's when you see 2 lands, rest in peace, are you just in? Even if it's like, say, 6 lands to rest in peace.
Probably.
If 6 lands are rest in peace, as long as one of them's a temple, you're probably in.
On the draw, like, I understand that hand can lose. That hand can definitely lose. But your 6-card hand, you want to have rest in peace in it, too.
Yeah.
You're looking for the same hand plus some extra stuff.
The fact that Todd's hand was turn 1 temple, turn 2 rest in peace already tells me this was a keep. And it really stinks that it didn't work out.
Yes. I mean, that is one of the downsides. You know, when you play the game against Blood Moon, say you're a Jund player, and you go non-basic, maybe you cast a creature, the creature dies, your opponent plays turn 3 Blood Moon. You're like, I didn't get to play Magic. Well, here's the other side of the coin.
Todd doesn't play much Magic either.
Collins made 7 power of creatures. He made 2 3/3s into a 1/1, and Todd's hand was all Blood Moons that just did nothing. So the Blood Moon can have that opposite kind of effect.
Todd Stevens on the play for the deciding game. He takes a mulligan. Looks like a card was flipped here. So the judge is going to resolve this. We'll see what happens on it. It's not...
It fell off the bottom of the deck. I assume it's just a re-randomize.
Yeah, so the judge says, hey, a warning's issued. Please be more careful with your cards.
He didn't look at his hand yet, so I guess they're just going to redo
reshuffle and deal 6 again. Yeah. Rather than saying shuffle that in, he said, no, just do the whole thing again.
Yeah, I suppose it's not necessarily clear-cut that nothing actually changed with the hand, so this is the safe way to do it, just re-deal 6 cards.
Sounds good. Collins has kept his 7.
Collins can win on 4. This is bad news.
He already did. Now, if the turn 2 rest in peace is on the play from Todd Stevens...
It's very different. He could have a turn 1 rest in peace on the play.
I guess Collins does have Nature's Claims in his sideboard. Maybe he could just blow it up and then keep doing dredge things.
Yeah, I would assume that those are in.
Todd contemplating a 6. There is a copy of Anger of the Gods in it. That's strong.
Yep. Needs lands.
He's going to keep... Here's a scry. It goes to the bottom. All right, game 3. Todd Stevens, Collins Mullen. Mountain go from Todd. He's got Rest in Peace and Anger, it looks like.
I think this mountain might be his only land.
I like this stuff. This is like where you have to speculatively keep things. Todd is going to miss on his land draw. Draws Blood Moon. Says go. Back to Collins. If I'm in Collins' spot, I'm about 100% on Todd to have Rest in Peace at this point.
He just must. He must have it.
It's those things when your opponent keeps a 1-lander and is a good player, you have to think there's a reason. And there's only one reason good enough to justify this.
Yes.
But Collins, He's going to Cathartic Reunion, discarding Dakmor Salvage Grave Troll. If he has a good enough start, it's not going to matter.
The other possibility, Todd has Anger, possibly Simian Spirit Guide to go with it.
First Dredge of Grave Troll hits another Dredger and Stinkweed Imp, and it hits a Prized Amalgam. So the second Dredge will be Imp. It'll hit a Grave Troll. And a Narcomoeba, so there will be creatures in play for Collins. We also see these sideboard cards coming up. Not in his hand, though. Another Grave Troll shows another Amalgam, even though because all this happens at once, both Amalgams are going to see this Narcomoeba.
Yep.
So that 7 power that won Collins game number 2 is going to happen game 3 as well. He says go. Can Todd draw a land? Does he? Are we playing?
Looked
no.
Like no.
He maybe has one more turn to hit, you think? If he goes land, rest in peace, land, anger.
Right.
Then are we okay? We're not taking too much damage?
If he has Simian Spirit Guide, Anger in a hand, that definitely really changes the equation. He's only taking 7 here, but he needs to make Anger happen fast.
Dakmor salvages the Dredge from Collins. To his credit, Collins did not have a better Dredger.
So here's what makes the clock a little bit faster.
This
Conflagrate just hits the graveyard.
Well, if Collins doesn't do it this turn, to be fair, he could get it rest in peace away.
True.
So maybe, is the play from Collins to just discard his whole hand as a burn spell? Or nearly his whole hand?
The only thing you're not respecting is Todd already having some combination of 2 Simian Spirit Guide and Anger of the Gods in his hand. Right, I suppose it just would have to be 1 Simian Spirit Guide, land off the top, different mana source, whatever.
Yeah, big burn spell, maybe play a land, get a Bloodghast. Right, because if Rest in Peace hits, this Conflagrate's gone.
Yes.
So, Collins will swing for 7. Todd Stevens down to 13. What else does he do? He's got a lot of options here.
It does look like he has a Nature's Claim in hand, though the Conflagrate will already be exiled before that could matter.
Right, so Rest in Peace has 2 clauses. One is it keeps the graveyards exiled. The first is when it hits the board, it exiles them. Even if you claim the Rest in Peace, your graveyard will go away.
Right.
You can start rebuilding, and that's good. For Collins. See what he wants to do here.
I imagine that the correct play is to not go for the Conflagrate just yet, just because that line is so bad against Anger on the following turn, which is possible with Simian Spirit Guide.
So Collins is going to play a land, take 2, get back Bloodghast. It looks like he's decided on Faithless Looting as his play. Just get a very big graveyard. Or it's it's Hardcast Stinkweed Imp, says go.
Okay. This puts way more pressure on Todd having Anger.
Next turn, a swing and a Conflagrate wins the game for Collins.
Yep.
Did Todd hit his land? If he didn't, the game is likely over. He'll discard Banishing Light. That was Todd's last window. At this point, it looks like it is going to be the end of the line for Todd and his White-Red Prison deck.
Yep, 10 power on the battlefield, Conflagrate in the graveyard, many more than 3 cards in hand.
A swing for 10. Todd's to 3. Here's a Conflagrate. And Collins Mullen. What a comeback by the Dredge player. He's going to move on 1 match away from top 8.
Talk about a heartbreaker for Todd Stevens. Lost against a Moldifor in game 2.
Talk about a comeback for Collins Mullen, though, right?
Right, certainly. At XN3, 1 win. I don't know if there's any implications